What's up, everyone? Today we're going to be learning how to build this batch swap app, all right, which just takes the balances of your wallet and then lets you swap it for, some amount of USDC, right? And so it does batch approvals, which are either 5792 or 7702, which just sends a bunch of transactions with one signature. And then it does batch swap right after. So I saw this when Daniel casted it a few days ago and decided, you know what, this is actually pretty easy to build in Herd. We actually already have a trail for this. So there's a swap token trail here where all you have to do is you can get the balances using the Dune API. We'll come back to that. And then you can choose to swap any amount of a token. So this is swapping ETH for USDC, which if I hit confirm is going to show me a preview of the transaction, right? So all that's underlying this trail is just one step and one source node or a read node, right? And if you wanted to recreate this, all you have to do is go add a step, add a swap token step, and then you can go into source nodes. You want to add a code node, you can search for Dune address balances. And, if you didn't have this, you could have created a default one and then gone to this chat, which is already pre-prompted with how to write a code node, and then just tell it like whatever you want. So we can actually just go ahead and test this right now, where I'll use my wallet and we'll actually go to sim.dune.com and I'll go to keys, and I've actually already created a key for this called Dust Sweeper. And then I can just plug this here, I'll run it, and you'll see it responds with a bunch of tokens and a bunch of logos, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll come back to this. All right, so we have the trail already. I actually can just delete this step since we don't need two steps in there. And I'm now going to use the guidebook, which is basically there's an API with every trail, and we have a guidebook, which is an LLM that is a text file. It's an LLM's text file on top, which teaches other LLMs how to build on top. I'm going to create a new app, which is just an app name, and I'll say this is batch swap. And we'll come back and add the link and everything later. And we'll create this as a normal web app for now, right? So I can go into here and you can see this is the LLM's text file that's going to teach the LLM how to build the app. And I'll go to V0 and say, build me a simple batch swap app. It's going to be a mobile app. So optimize the UI for that. I just paste this in here, and I might as well just take a screenshot of this too, since I can just say to use this as UI inspo. Right, so use the image as inspo. So I'm going to send in that message and let V0 just start cooking. So we'll come back in a few seconds or minutes. Cool. It says it's been built. Let's see. I can connect my wallet just to test it out. And it says enter my Dune API key. Okay, so I don't think it really listened to the UI design here. I'm going to say make sure to match this. Or actually, maybe it did. We'll find out. But we should actually move the token balance check into a server function, which means we want to actually hide it in the back end for hiding our API key. And set an environmental variable for the Dune API key. Then load the balances as soon as the wallet is connected. So it did this because it says the Dune API is a user input technically, but no, it's not going to be user input. We're going to put it in environmental variables, and don't worry, in the future we'll have a better way of managing these environmental variables. All right, so it's now asking me to add a Dune API key. So remember, it's just created at sim.dune.com. I'll save this. And now we can connect our wallet again. And looks like it's pulled in the balances. I can now select some tokens, but there's still a lot we want to improve here. For one, I think these values are too big. So I'll say, make sure you're actually dividing the amounts by the decimals. This should actually come from the API. So what we can do is we can go back to the trail, and I guess I have two of it open, but I can submit a call here, and I can actually just, copy this and say, hey, here is some example data. I'll also say, make sure the swap button does not collide with the powered by herd footer. Should also say remove the info icon and the settings icon. We'll also want to allow a maximum of 10 tokens to be selected at a time. So you can queue messages into V0, which is very helpful. Oh, and then don't have the initial display screen. Just go directly into the main app and show a connect wallet button in the middle if none is connected. Right, because we don't want to have that. We don't want to have that ugly thing. Like we don't need this. I don't know why V0 likes to put these it's not even a splash screen, like a loading screen in here. And then classic, we need to center the div. So I'm going to say, make sure this is centered. Just so it's not too ugly. All right, so we can connect the wallet, and it's going to show these tokens. We'll say limit to 2 decimal places on the tokens. And also, when we're selecting, I actually think it would be nice if you clicked and you could select like the amount. But we don't want to make them type because that's not great UX. So let's also add a % amount to cell as a row of buttons that appear if a token is selected. This means we need the selected token to have a different color background, a border, and then 3 buttons underneath for 10%, 50%, and 100%. Default to 100%. Okay, so now I should be able to see, yep, it's showing in the right place. And it does indeed expand now to show the tokens and amounts. Don't need to. Sometimes it's helpful to take screenshots for it because it might get confused. I don't want that. So I'll paste the image here and say, fix the token logo and selected. Also move the expansion toggle arrow to a different button on the left side of the swap. Or I guess actually right side, because you want to be closer to the, the right thumb. Sorry, left-handed people. Right side of the swap button. Black button. or black button icon sized. So now the trail originally assumes you're swapping one at a time, right? So what we need to do is basically call the trail to get the swap amount and details for every single token, and then send all approvals at once and send all transactions at once. And this can be done with sendCalls from VM, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, please implement batch transactions using sendCalls from VM. We should be asking for approval first if required, and batching all approvals, then waiting for confirmation using, there should be a wait for calls, yeah. This, then go to the swap batch step and send all swaps in sendCalls batch 2. And this is a little detail just for tracking on herd, is after getting the response, I think it's receipts, go through all receipts and send each transaction hash to the executions API to save it. Because there's this structure, which it should be able to find by reading it, but in case it doesn't. And then last thing on the UI side, make it clear in the UI that they are doing an approve, then swap, skipping approve if not required, or skipping / not showing approve if not required for any of the selected tokens. All right. So just to give more details on 5792, it's essentially, normally you have to send, for each transaction you sign, you have to go and sign the transaction yourself. But with 5792, it's essentially a new EIP standard, which you can always just search for EIPs and go to the EIP site, which is essentially a new kind of wallet RPC method, so that every wallet, not every wallet, but every wallet should implement sendCalls, right? And there's two ways of doing this. You could have 7702 where you actually are setting your address to a contract, which has an execute function, so you can batch send all of those calls in one transaction. Or if the wallet doesn't, like if your actual wallet address doesn't support 772 yet, but it supports 5792, then it'll send each transaction, like each call as its own transaction, but still only with one signature. So the UX is actually much better. So it says that it's figured it out. Let's test that theory. Let me go and say I want to sell like 10% of my hire. Great. So it looks like there's an error. This is pretty easy to debug. There's a few ways of doing this. I find that the easiest way is actually to open up the network tab. And if I click this, I will see when something has failed. I'll see swap validation has failed. I'm guessing this is because if I look at the inputs being sent, yeah, it's sending the big amount. You need to make sure to apply the decimals to the actual amount we are swapping, since the real amount is what we should pass to the API, not the raw amount. So it was, remember we asked it to change the decimals to be human readable. This is actually the right amount that needs to be sent in here as well, because this is assuming this is the actual amount that's being sold, not the big int or like raw decimal version. So okay, let's try this again. I'll say let's swap 10%. And looks like there's still an error, so let's just go and see what the error is. Let me first check if it fixed the amount. It does not look like it fixed the amount. So this is a case where sometimes the V0 agent starts to suffer when your asks get a little more complex. This one is one that it should be able to solve, but again, sometimes it's just not able to. And so there's a few things you could do here. You could go into the code and actually adjust it yourself, where I can look here and see, okay, it's trying to do some approval calls, but actually the first thing is evaluations. And there's this raw token amount, which is multiplying here, which is wrong. So in this case, I can read the code and just know, like, okay, this should just be the actual amount to swap. Because I don't want to multiply by the decimals. Again, things that the LLM should be able to figure out, but sometimes it doesn't. And this is when you sometimes want to go and switch tools. So I'll teach this right now. We should go to Andrew or go to your GitHub account, and I'll call this, V0 batch swap tokens is fine. There is a repository name in there. Classic form validation failure. So we're going to create a GitHub repository, because once you have a GitHub, it's much easier to change between tools. Because if you need to do like tougher tasks, it's probably better to actually have cursor. So we're going to set this as the active branch. And I can now actually go here and open this up in GitHub desktop, because I am not a CLI expert. And I'm going to clone this locally, which just means I now have the code on my computer. I'm going to open up cursor. And then we're going to now, what was this called? V0 something? This. Great. So we're going to open this up. And if you've never used cursor, you can always go to cursor.com. And it's going to take me to the agents tab because I'm logged in. However, you can just go here and download it. It's free to set up, free to use until until you hit a certain amount. And now we have to do some installation so that we can run the code here. This is fairly simple. I know that it's a PNPM, but if you don't have this set up, you can literally just ask it, help me do the installations required, and then run this front end. In fact, I might as well just ask it to do it so you guys can see it. It's a bit wordy, but normally what you have to do is you have to install the packages and then you have to run your front end server. In fact, I'm actually noticing here, I think it's still doing the... It's a lot of errors because the packages aren't installed yet, so don't worry about that. But I think it's still doing our token API call through the front end, not through a back. So let's actually see. Token list, tokens. Where is it setting the tokens? Set token balances, fetch token balances, library, and I mean, I guess it's not great to have this in the front end itself, so we're actually going to ask it to move this to a server function, so the keys are hidden away. But we'll wait for this to do this first. You can see it did a pnpm install. If you didn't have pnpm, then it would have actually gone to help you install that on your computer for you. I'm going to stop this because it's taking too long, but essentially I need to just run pnpm run dev. And I'm actually going to close this chat, open a new one, and say, please move this to a server function instead of having it in the app itself. And this also means that I actually need to add a .env, because we did this in v0, but we have not done this yet in this local repo, right? You never want to save these environmental variables publicly. You can see this is actually in a git ignore, so that you don't end up accidentally sharing your keys or something to GitHub. Do not do that. So we're going to let cursor do its thing with moving the route first, but we should also now be able to go to localhost 3001. And you'll know I did 3001 because, well, okay, actually it's 3000. I usually have something running on 3001. So I can see that I have this running locally now. Beautiful. And I can connect my wallet, and great, it's already loaded. I can see it's actually made the changes I need here. You can always tell by the colors. I can see blue means it's a new file. M means it's modified, just in general. And I'm just going to say, okay, that's fine. We'll keep those. And so we can test the swap here. And it's going to say, actually, it wants to do an approval of just this one token. And so I can go and confirm it and close this. And let's see if it makes it to the next step or not. See, there's some fatal received. I think those are just normal WebSocket. Type error ends with waiting for confirmation. Core relayer. There's always a bunch of issues. I think the subscribing ones are just wallet connect, so you don't have to worry about that. It should have actually taken me to the next step. But I believe now, oh, it's asking me to actually go and click swap. And so now it's going to go and ask me to do the swap itself. I can go confirm, and it's going to go and submit the transaction. And then hopefully after it's done, it's waiting for confirmation. Error during batch swap, id.ends with. Right, so there is an error, it looks like here. And I'm actually, again, I'm going to do a new chat. And you can always just paste the errors in here and let it try and figure it out. Now, this does mean that the transaction I sent did not make it onto Herd. Sometimes that happens. And if you want to make sure you can find it, you can always look here and see, okay, I think this was the swap. Yep. I can go back to here. This is the trail, right? I can create a new execution because I know this is the same wallet, and I'm just going to manually paste in the transaction here, and you'll see, yep, it saved correctly. It was verified that we did this. We did this little swap here of 5,700 higher, right? So this is if you need to have it in Herd so that you can track it, or you're trying to build a feed. You don't have to be like, I lost the execution. Well, no, as long as you have the transaction, you can always paste it back into here. So expected a string ID, a sendCalls. This is actually a good call that we should be waiting for confirmation. We should actually console log this. I can see this is actually upset. So this response has an ID. approval calls ID. If I undo this, what was this doing before? This needed to be .id. So, simple fix. Let's see, what are these? This is upset about. Cursor has nice tabs, so anytime there's an error, logo URL does not exist on token balance. That's a type thing, not important. I was actually checking here in the responses, and it's true, logo URL does not exist. So this should have just been logo this whole time. Which explains why it was not showing up correctly. Again, Cursor has this figured out much better than most other tools. So, all right, let's hit a refresh. And something that I actually realized we needed to add is we have to go to Reown and go and add a project ID. You just copy this, and you want to put it in your environmental variable file because you need to have it under this name, specifically this next public Wallet Connect project ID. So make sure you put it in here, just so, again, you have no wallet connection issues. Otherwise, you may run into the bug where it gets stuck on connecting instead of getting to connected. So we have this now, and so if I go and click swap, it's going to show me this, and actually says the transaction is likely to fail. If you see this, normally it's because the gas limits are just too low. So I'm going to go and tell it, set custom gas limits for approval and swap calls, 1 mil for approval and 2 mil for swap. This is just to make sure it doesn't fail. Added a larger gas limit, and if you have no idea what this is, basically it's like every transaction uses a certain amount of like compute or gas. So sometimes the quotes will end up being like quotes from wallets and whatnot, especially for these newer methods, will end up having issues with gas and running out. So this can just be a helpful way of making sure that the transaction is less likely to fail. Now in this case, it still says it's going to fail, and we don't really know why, right? So this is actually a good time for us to try it out in the trail itself. So how much am I swapping for? I'm swapping for 5,103 higher. So if I come back here, so how much am I swapping for? I'm swapping for 5,135 higher. So if I go back to this trail now, just close this because I don't need it. I'm going to put this as the sell token amount, and I also need the higher address, which maybe is easiest for me to get just by, oh, actually, hold on, I have it here. Just copy that address. Right, and we're actually going to go and simulate it and see what's broken. So it actually says the simulation is going to succeed, which, again, this gets into like, you know, is MetaMask wrong or right? Yeah, TBD. Depends on what they're using for simulation. However, it seems like the simulation from Herd, which we use Tenderly, is saying that, hey, this is actually going to be fine. So anyways, we have this now, and so with this, we actually have a completed flow now, right? We could select 10 tokens, and I can just check that it shows up the way that I want. And now if I was to go and swap all of these, it would ask me actually for a batch set of approvals first. Actually, in this case, there is an error. It says unexpected token F. And I actually realized in this case it's because ETH is, I think, typed as native. or not typed, but the response is actually native. If I were to find this in the console somewhere. Okay, I can't really find it, but I know that ETH is being typed as native, which means that I could say when we go submit for evaluation, if the token address is native, we should just use the 0 address instead. Again, why someone would choose to sell all their ETH when this would actually fail the transaction, I'm not sure. It actually might be worth also saying we should also just filter ETH out from the token list. So filter out where address equals native. Since there's really no point in showing ETH in this in this batch seller for now, for this case. Okay, so now, yep, I can see ETH is indeed gone. And if I just selected like 3 of these and hit 10%, it should go and pop up the approval. Oh, I'm still seeing there is an error. So let's just go check it out. This one is saying the input is invalid. What am I seeing here? 7.005. Yes, you can't sell USDC to buy USDC. So we should also filter out USDC, which is in this case the address. It doesn't make sense to swap USD for C for USDC. So. Great, so now that this is filtered out, this should now work. Where, yep, it's going to say that I'm approving these assets, and it's showing me it was showing me the step, right? So it's going to say that this is potentially a scam because these are like unlimited. But anyways, I can cancel that for now. We have everything we need for the app, and to put this back to V0, all I have to do is say, updates to app. And then once I push that, I can actually go back to V0 and pull these changes. And now we can actually go and deploy the app. So all I have to do is go publish. I actually have to, where is my environment variables? We actually have to add the environment variable for, what is it called? For this guy, which I have over here. So I'll just paste this in here, just so we have that as well. And now I can go and publish this to production, which is going to, just ignore the warning. We can now just make this an actual public site. Now it is deployed. I can visit the site publicly, connect my wallet, and do everything I need in here, right? And it's a fully working site. You can actually test it out in Farcaster as well as like a mini app. A lot more work that has to be done for it to actually be recognized as a mini app. Right now it's not doing a bunch of things that it's expecting, such as SDK.ready, but I should be able to connect my Farcaster wallet, but I should be able to, this is still connecting to my actual wallet, but it should connect to the Farcaster wallet as well, and then it just works as a nice little mobile mini app in here, right? And we've basically rebuilt that same app, this one, in under 30-ish minutes. So hope you enjoyed. Again, you can just build off of this trail yourself. Anyone can build off of it. And oh, that actually reminds me, I should go to Trail Apps, edit this, and say uses 5792, 7702 to batch approve and send any tokens held by a user. And I will go and put this link here, see the chat, and I'll also make this public so that anyone can learn from this as well, right? And then might as well, we'll just make the GitHub repo public as well. This is now a public repo, which I'll also have linked in here. And now if we go back to the trail, I can see in more stats, batch swap is actually now in here, right? So anyone can see this and go see the app and try it out. And it's also now on my Trailblazer page. So yeah, we collect all of the apps that you build. And so this will kind of all be better for discovery someday in the future. So hope you learned something. Hope you found this interesting. If you wanted to turn this into a mini app, all you have to do is go back to the trail and switch from web app to Farcaster mini app, and just go in here and tell it like change the wallet connection from ConnectKit into Farcaster connection. Don't change any other logic, and just paste this in, right? And it should go and figure it out. And after you have that done, all you have to do is go into manifests, paste your app in here. It's going to say it's not valid because you have to remove that. And then all you have to do is create a hosted manifest. It's going to ask you to fill out a bunch of forms, and then give you a link to say, hey, go add this redirect, where you just go into here, tell it to do the redirect, and then it's done, yada yada yada. But the hard part's done. You've built the app. So yeah, that's it. That's another trail down. Still have many more to share and go, and hope you all have a good day. Cheers.